quality is, if you like, a nice word to use, and quality has got many connotations to it. And I think as we take more challenges in business life, the name, the nature, the applicability of quality changes. And we have to be abreast of change, and we have to see if we can integrate it into our business life. And I think that this is one of the challenges that ICL has faced. You are an organization that has grown with the quality movement. You are an organization which is quoted in many books, in many journals. I personally, feel very proud of my association with ICL, and I always mention you in good stead, believe me. But there are things which sometimes you face, and there are dilemmas, and you have to ask the question. Why is the business sleeping badly, and what can we do about putting our vision on course? And I think that this is where measurement becomes critically important, because as you know, management is a nice word, but it has some rules to it. And I always remind my students by saying to them, all of us, at least most of us, have got 5 fingers in our hands. And I say, before you use the word management, just make sure you can count these things. And the first one is understand what you do. In business, before you talk about management, you have to first of all say, well, I understand what I do. So understanding what you do. And quality reminds us of this, doesn't it? I mean, things like process mapping, flow charting, is getting you to go back to basics and understand the functions. The second rule of management is improvement, because once you understand what you do, you see the ugliness. I mean, housewives, for example, and my wife is typical of this, they like to rearrange furniture in the house. They like, they see that there's too much furniture, so they take something out. And I think that the purpose of process mapping is really for you to streamline what you do, is to concentrate on the basics, on the essentials. And so once you flowchart, you realize that you have things like what we call the dangling boxes, things that you generate, you put in a lot of energy and effort in, and nobody wants. Once you improve things, you have to check, haven't you, that you have indeed improved. So the third rule of management is measure what you have improved, to make sure that you are closing a gap, you're getting rid of waste or whatever. The fourth rule of management is control. The word control here is very important. Controlling work environment, controlling processes, controlling your level of consistency, your promises to your customers, your predictability of committing what you do for your customers. Because without control, you can never ever say, I manage things. So that's the fifth rule of management, is management. You only manage the things which are under your control. If anything slips out of your control, that means you're not good at it. So let's remind ourselves that the art of management, or quality management for that purpose, is a hard one, is a tough one. And the key driver for making it easier to us is management by facts, is measurement, is action-oriented management, and those kind of things. So I think, as an opening, I wanted to not be complacent by reminding all of us that management means measurement, and the two are very much synonymous. And in order for me to highlight this even further, I would like to share with you the findings of this survey by a group of consultants in the States who actually looked at the value of measurement. And this is some of their key conclusions. This is a survey that they've done by targeting organizations that do indeed apply measurement, and that was the control sample, if you like, and another sample of companies that did not use measurement. And this is where they found, if you like, innovators, pioneers in terms of measurement, and those who are leading the pack, leading in their industry sectors, they use measures which is understandable to them. So let's derive a lesson early in this morning, that measurement is culture. Measurement a la ICL is not measurement in Xerox, yeah? Or measurement in IBM. So let's remind ourselves, measurement is something we understand. Achieving a balance between use of financial and non-financial measures. very much we're going to check this today. Let's see. Let's be honest. Let's be candid about ourselves. Do we really measure in a nice mixed fashion, or are we skewed in, and are we biased in our measurement? Linking strategic measures with operational ones. Goal deployment, what does that mean? It means creating a chain, creating a communication channel between top management and the lower circles and the lower levels of the organization. So let us see if within ICL we stretch that chain, we create it. We create hooks through measurement for a two-way communication process. Updating strategic scorecard regularly. Are we managing dynamically? Are the goals that we set in 1991 still valid? How often do we review them? Who gets involved? Does the language change? Does the focus change? Those are kind of legitimate questions. And the communication of measures to all employees. Another thing. So you see, there are aspects associated with measurement which distinguish good companies from others. And this is a statement from the survey. For those executives who have gone beyond the green eye shades and stopwatches to assess the pivot points of their company strategy, from how well customer expectations are met, to the ability to manage relevant environmental and regulatory forces, to how adaptable the organization is, the measurement effort will yield ongoing results to the bottom line. This is a statement. It looks positive, but it is saying to us a lot of things. It says, if you are committed to measurement, if you spread it beyond the routine, traditional, if you like, economic-based kind of measures, you will reap out the benefits. And this is checked and verified through this sample. And it is checked and verified, by the way, through a lot of studies. I could quote you a lot of studies that have tried to link commitment to measurement to impact on bottom line results. And none of us, including us in academia, can go out in public and say there is a very positive correlation between measurement and bottom line results, because there are other variables outside anybody's control. But what we have witnessed consistently is that there is a happy association between positive commitment to measurement and, if you like, leading to positive trends in measurement and consistency in achieving results. Let's just remind ourselves that for those companies that have done very well, these are the kind of ingredients, if you like. This is the chef's secret book, cookbook. Agreement on strategy. Strategy is dynamic. We talk in the 1990s, in 1996, about bottom-up strategy. Some of you may have heard of this, some of you may not have heard of this. Bottom-up strategy is a legitimate way of saying, let's start with understanding the voice of the process. And I know process is a dirty word in ICL, but I will use it and forgive me. Process is universal. It's anything with inputs, conversion, and outputs. Let's do it in a bottom-up way. Let's understand our capability. Let's do a diagnosis on us before we commit or overcommit or undercommit ourselves to the marketplace. So there are ways of agreeing on strategy. Clarity of communication. That's not through slogans only or newsletters or having Keith coming today. Very important, very important. But there are other means as well. And the best means is, if you like, the document. The document which says what unites all of us here. What is the thing that is going to bring alignment of the whole organization? How do we achieve goal congruence? And that is strategy and goal deployment. And organizational culture. Okay? The culture itself, if you understand it, if you understand its limitations, if you understand its strengths, can be a competitive advantage. Okay? Think about that, please. What I want to do now is just show you a few charts from this survey. And I think it's interesting to see that measurement is a problem, not perhaps for just ICL, but a problem for many organizations. And this chart shows you, if you look at what managers use to make decisions and what they use to drive organizational change, and what they use to pay people and reward them for their efforts, you will see that the trend goes down. In other words, Even in 1996, even in the best organizations, we are still driven by financial measures. We're still driven by shareholder pressures. And so this is a very interesting chart. You take customer satisfaction, for instance. Why should it come third to financial performance? If you look at the way we operate in the West compared to the Japanese, it's very much on what we call the inverted pyramid principle. In the West, we have shareholder first, and we have customer second, and we have employee, don't we? More or less. If you go to Japan, it's the other way around. You have the customer, you have the employee, and you have the shareholder. This is the order. In other words, in Japan, everybody is a shareholder. Everybody has got a stake in the organization. But the customer is the trigger point. If you deliver to the customer, you buy loyalty, you get repeat business, you can charge premium prices because the customer believes in you, believes in the quality of your products. And if you believe in quality, you believe in people, because quality is about creativity, it's about innovation, it's about professionalism, it's about the transaction process, if you like, not about the product, not about zero defects. That's abstract. The customer does not buy abstract from you. He buys your brand name, okay? So the employee is the key salesperson for your brand name. And once you achieve that, you can also deliver to the shareholder. So this is the inverted pyramid principle, and I think we ought to be aware of that. And this is reflected here, that we have to really change mindsets. Not just, it's not just about learning techniques. Some more charts from the survey. Again, where the measures are clearly defined and how the measures are reported and reviewed on an annual basis. And you can see it's the same thing. Financial measures are predominantly the key area of focus, and then when we come to things like innovation and change and employees or people satisfaction and customer satisfaction, it comes down as a third or fourth priority. And I think, I wanted just to reassure you that sometimes bad is not bad enough, yes? And by looking at this sample of elite companies, you can still see that there is a problem in measurement. The value of measurement, just a couple more charts. Highly valued information, willing to bet their jobs on the quality of the information. At least, if we don't consider customer satisfaction to be important, or employee satisfaction to be important, shouldn't we at least ensure that the information has got the high quality? That we are talking about refined information and we're not talking about garbage. We take greater care, according to this survey, at producing information which is relevant financially, but we don't take good care about producing information which is relevant to the customer and relevant to employees. We don't even know how to design measures. Probably we don't even understand the meaning of measures, their appropriateness and things like that. And this is the exercise of today, is to make sure that you understand how to design measures. And this is really the two samples put together, just to demonstrate to you that there is a big gap between those who actually believe in measurement and those who don't measure. Perceived as an industry leader over the past 3 years, this was a study done independently. You can see from the left-hand side that organizations that apply measurement are considered in their peer groups as leaders, okay? Reported to be financially ranked in the top third of their industry. Again, look at the difference. There's a big gap between the two. Last major culture or operational change judged to be successful. They can manage their destiny. And I think I'm more impressed with the red bar than the other two, to be honest, because one thing I have learned personally about measurement is that it gives you better control of your business. It lets you to manage your destiny. Organizations that have been at the brink of disaster, and we can name a lot of them in the West. You can talk about Xerox, you can talk about Cadillac, you can talk about American Express, you can talk about Federal Express, you can talk about IBM recently, and many, many others. The reason they have done it and they are still sustaining performance is because they insist on measurement, because they know that it's like holding the reins very tight. And if you let go of the reins, you know, you could hit a wall or a precipice, or you could disappear. And this is, by the way, justified through a study done in Japan by JUSI, the Japanese Union of Scientists and Engineers. They commissioned a study in 1983 which looked at 26 Deming Prize winners over a period of 20 years, from 63 all the way to 83. And they measured their performance against the industry average using 6 indicators in 3-year blocks. And the key finding is that those 26 companies are still in business today, okay? They joined forces with another company or they changed name, but they're still there, very strong. The second point is they generate an average of 12% more sales than the nearest rival. That's conclusive. It's done in 1983. So this is just to kick off this morning's session by reminding all of us measurement is a serious topic, and that's why we chose the title about health, because if you look after your business, it's like looking after your health, and measurement is the way to look after your business. Okay, I will come back to some of this later on, but what I'd like to do now is share with you some thoughts about quality. Does anybody get surprised when I put a chart like this which says negative quality? Strange, isn't it? Negative quality? We all think that quality is positive, don't we? We all think that quality is about the good things in life. But the reason I put this chart is just for us to get closer to the understanding of quality. And quality has got various dimensions, and this is the reason why I start with this chart. First of all, negative quality is dealing with deficiencies. It's the management of quality from a deficient perspective. The Japanese call it must quality. In other words, if you don't do it as a baseline, you're out of business. Okay? If the customer says, I want it green, and you give it to the customer blue or yellow, you're out of business. That's must quality. Negative quality is reactive, isn't it? Dealing with waste, scrap, delays, and interruptions and technical faults in computers and things like that is ugly because it's reactive. It's distracting you from what you are supposed to be doing, and that is manage your strategy, meet your corporate goals. Somebody comes and distracts you. It's annoying, isn't it? Could be unmotivational. In other words, here I am, I have worked very hard, and I want to meet my objectives as an individual because I want promotion or whatever. My supervisor comes to me and he says, bad news, the customer has returned the work that you've done. I can't jump up and down with delight, can I? This is the worst news anybody can hear. So it is unmotivational. Deals with costs rather than benefits. I think the reason for that is because if you have to do it again, you have eaten your profit already, okay? You haven't been given the opportunity to generate or add value. Tackles effectiveness rather than competitiveness. Effectiveness is your performance internally. It's trying to raise your standard of work internally. Competitiveness is actually doing it in the marketplace. And that is the difference between the two. If you can, if you like, get your house in order, then you can work in the marketplace. If you are being tripped all the time, okay, and brought to the floor through managing only negative quality, you're only dealing with putting your house in order. That's what it means. And the word delight does exist, and certainly there is no way you can delight a customer once you upset them once. You know, you'll be lucky if they forgive you. Customers don't forgive and don't forget. So that's negative quality. We need...
No, I agree with that.
You don't agree with that?
No, not entirely, because
Yeah.
if you've got a bad situation, you react very confidently,
Yeah.
then customers recognise that
Yeah.
there's opportunity, you still rely on
Yeah. 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 The customer, in a sense, I mean, your destiny is in your hands. And I think if you are committed to quality, if you are transparent about what you do, if your customers are your real partners, then perhaps the customer will see what has gone wrong. But I mean, if you're not committed to quality in the sense where you are transparent and you take your customers as your partners, then I think the notion of I won't forgive you or I won't forget you, will still apply, because the customer will remain suspicious of you because they don't understand you. You're not transparent. If you tell the truth, people will believe you, even if you have done something upon him, something bad. You've said the truth, and this is the context of saying it. So we need to take quality outside. We need to say to the customer, I am transparent with you. I am working on deficiencies. There are things which are niggling, and we're going to commit to them and do them. And we see it in the marketplace, don't we? I mean, if you take the automobile sector, when we have now producers committing by saying, here's my car, take it, and for 5 years you've got unlimited mileage, you've got warranty, you've got parts and labor, you've got this and that. What does that tell us? Please trust me, right? Please trust me. And that is what I mean by transparent quality. It's happening in other sectors, isn't it? You buy anything now, you've got a period of time to play with it and you can return it or whatever. So the customer judges, and it's not up to us. Xerox in 1992, I think, produced the Customer Golden Guarantee Certificate, whereby you can take or lease any of their copiers, and you have up to 3 years to make up your mind about whether you've been happy with it. You can change your mind after year 2. You can say it vibrates quite a lot. It's got lines and I can't get rid of them, or whatever. Please come and fix it or take it. So that is the how far you should stretch quality if you want to be competitive. Let's look at the positive side, because positive is better than negative. Quality has got another angle to it, and I'm not sure that in business we understand the power of driving with quality in a positive way. The Japanese call it attractive quality, because positive quality is the customer perspective. That is not your perspective, that is the customer perspective. It is proactive in the sense that you do it to manage your business. You do it outside. We mentioned just now the automobile industry. We mentioned Xerox. When they go out and stick their necks out and say, I'm going to give you a 3-year warranty or whatever, they are doing it in a proactive fashion. Maybe the customer hasn't asked for it. But more importantly, it's really about getting the best out of people. Proactive quality is motivational because it deals with innovation, with creativity. It doesn't deal with patching up, with fixing what's gone wrong. It deals with competitive benefits. Remember, you have put your house in order. You're starting from a position of strength. You can meet and comply with requirements. Now you are in the next dimension of quality, which is, delivering value and reaping out competitive benefits from quality. Positive quality gives you the opportunity to benchmark against the best. So you're not saying, whom can we learn from to put our house in order? You're saying, let's see if we have the benchmark. Let's see if we can widen that gap and keep it in our favor and keep and maintain that competitive advantage. And more importantly, it's the delight factor, isn't it? And what I would like to do now is to explain to you that the 3 dimensions of quality. How many of you have come across the Kano model? The 3 dimensions of quality. Okay, quite a few here. But nonetheless, for the benefit of our other colleagues, let's just spend a couple of minutes on this. Kano was a disciple of Professor Ishikawa in Japan. He is probably one of the youngest gurus. describes quality in 3 dimensions. And he said basically you've got 2 parameters to manage. You've got to manage your own process, and you have to manage customer satisfaction. This is not a graph, by the way. It's just sort of scenarios. Let's say here the customer is delighted. Here the customer is angry. Here we're not good at managing the process. And here we are really optimizing. And basically he's saying that before we start to talk about delight and attractive quality, we have to manage a basic function of quality. Okay? This is basic quality. In other words, this function of quality, and I'll give you a few examples in a minute. If we don't manage it, the customer will be very angry at us. You know, will never forgive us. If we manage it extremely well, we have optimized our technology, our people's efforts and everything else. We're working here. The delight factor is here. The customer is not even smiling. For example, I buy a computer from ICL. I take it home. I want to plug it. I want it to work. Or at least I don't want to have an electric shock. I expect ICL to have taken care of the intrinsic aspects of quality, which is safety, reliability perhaps. You know, if you can't manage that as a basic function, you have a problem. Nobody's saying anything, so you haven't got a problem. So that's basic quality. If I go to a restaurant, if I eat a meal, I don't want to be poisoned. I expect the restaurant owner to take good care of hygiene standards. Okay? If you get food poisoning, then there is a problem. But you don't go and praise a restaurant owner by saying, oh, wonderful, you know, I haven't got food poisoning. So that is basic quality. And you agree with me that there are many, many companies who are even struggling to meet that basic requirement, which is their license to practice. If you go in the marketplace and say, I'm a restaurateur or whatever, that is the basic requirement. It doesn't give you a competitive advantage. It just gets you in the playing field. You still have to perform. And on this word perform, we have a second dimension of quality, which is performance quality. This dimension of quality is what distinguishes you from your competitors. You've done the basics and you've said, hang on, yes, of course, IBM too, you know, they've got computers which are reliable and safe. But ICL products are better. You know, look at the features, look at the design, look at the price, look at the service, look at the support. You've actually brainstormed the customer and in such a way that they have leaned towards your own products and didn't take the competitor. That's performance. So this is the trust element between you and your customer. I buy from you because I trust that what I buy from you will perform to my expectations. And that's why I don't buy it from somebody else. Let's give some examples. I want to buy a car. I've got a limited budget. I want to buy a car which is small and economical. I want a car which does 70 miles a gallon. So I go to the first dealer and they say to me, sorry, you know, we have got big cars and they're too expensive. And I go to the second one, same thing. Third one would say to me, we have what you want, but it's beyond your budget. So I go to the fourth one. He says, oh, of course, yes, we do. Yes, we can give you that car and it will meet your budget and it will perform to your expectations. It can do 70 miles a gallon. Okay? So you imagine I take that car on the road and I verify that it gives me 70 miles a gallon. If it does give me that, do you think I will jump up and down with delight? No, I paid for it. I paid for it and I didn't buy it from somebody else. So performance is a feature of quality which the customer pays for and which starts the notion of branding, the notion of differentiation in strategy, where the customer is biased towards the choice, but it doesn't give the delight factor. So the customer is happy if you perform here, but if you're not giving the performance, they again would be very angry at you. Nowadays, in the 1990s, the 2 dimensions of quality are not enough. We cannot create a competitive advantage just by managing quality here and managing quality and performance. Technology is the same, isn't it? If you buy computers, they're the same. If you look at business solutions, it's very confusing whom to choose from. There's a lot of clever people selling computer technology, IT and software and what have you. But, we need to go beyond that. And that's the third dimension of quality. The third dimension of quality is here. And it's the delight factor. I also call it, by the way, the tickle factor. Because sometimes, if you can't delight your customers and keep them happy, tickle them a little bit. Give them something once in a while to keep them happy. So the delight factor, the third dimension of quality, is not a dimension which is spoken. The customer doesn't know it's there. The customer may not be in a position to express it explicitly. The example in the automobile industry, ABS, for example, automatic braking systems, when they came out, they were a revelation. They distinguished, I don't know whether it's General Motors or whoever brought them out, they gave them competitive advantage over everybody else. But very soon, competitors catch up with you, don't they? Rampant copying. As soon as you bring it out, somebody else is there, to copy you. So the third dimension of quality is kind of elusive, and you've got to catch it. Airbags in cars. When they came out, wow, I'm safe. I can survive in a crash, whatever. But now they're boring because everybody else produces cars, with airbags. So the problem with this third dimension is that as soon as the customer tastes it, the taste goes very quickly. So it comes down here. It becomes basic quality. If you produce it once and you think, that's it, I'm going to retire now and sit back because I have created such and such technology in the 1970s, you're dead. As simple as that. Because the quality and positive quality is about rejuvenation of the third dimension. It's about constantly saying, branding, branding, branding. Let's keep hitting the consumer with our name, with our ability to innovate, with our ability to keep them tickled or delighted, whichever you prefer. Crosby doesn't like the word delight. So, that is the extent to which you need to manage quality. And believe me, the subject of today, gets you to measure those three. It's the happy balance. I go to a lot of conferences and I hear a lot of people talking about this dimension with a lot of pride. And I say, well, that's your business, isn't it? If you don't have those measures in place, why should you be in that industry in the first place? Or they talk about technology and what it is doing for them. I say, well, that's not branding, that's product. Performance is product or service. This is branding. This is the company name. This is the image. And that's the difference between the three. So let us please appreciate that quality is your business. And we need to understand it from this perspective. So, what is the challenge for ICL? I think as far as deployment is concerned, the challenge is to work on deficiencies by all means, because the deficiencies are the foundation of your organization. You don't want the whole organization to crumble. Therefore, you need to work very hard to build a strong foundation. What we're trying to achieve, obviously, and this is a busy slide, is corporate commitment to measurement. And the analogy is very much one of, if you like, a chemical reactor. If you have SmithKline Beecham Pharmaceuticals or the Wellcome or whatever, and they want to produce a wonderful drug, they have to manage a lot of things in the process. And the two key things are here are the ingredients, isn't it? I mean, the first one is what we call the voice of the customer, is understanding customer needs, understanding customer wants, understanding what the competition is offering, understanding the market understanding the threats to your organization, and so on. So it's a lot of work, isn't it? It's a lot of hard work, managing externally, managing the competitive environment. But it is only one ingredient. It is not the only ingredient that helps to put the strategy together. And you would agree with me that many organizations, and I hope ICL is not one of them, rush very quickly through external analysis to put together a strategy. And they omit the most important thing, and that is understand yourself. Understand your capability, the bottom-up bit, if you like, which is the voice of the process. Your capability. Is the technology capable of doing it? Can the performance deliver those targets? Is the skill mix enough to provide such standards? Have we got the competence to promise to customers those complex products or services, whatever? A lot of legitimate questions which come out from strategy are actually answered in a very easy way by understanding yourself or understanding the process. Once you've worked on those two, there are other things which need to be put in place. I know I talked to Joe last night, and I know that policy deployment is a key thing within ICL at the moment. Yes, it is, and I've got it here on this chart. Quality policy deployment, top down, directive, with instructions, with clarity, with good communication, with targets and so on. I totally accept that, but that's not enough. It's got to synchronize with something else, which is performance measurement, which is really what we're talking about today, in a sense. I put plan, do, check, and act, something you're familiar with, in the two, if you like, elements. Because strategy is dynamic, isn't it? And I always say to people, well, sweat is human, isn't it? We expect people to produce and sweat on the shop floor, operationally. But why shouldn't the people at the strategy level sweat as well? Because it's human. So strategy has got to be managed dynamically. Plan, do, check, and act. It's not once a year that Keith and the group meet to decide on the direction of ICL. They have to meet as often as needs be. They have to have their finger on the pulse. They have to know what the business is doing. They have to understand the problems. They have to, take action. Strategy is what they're paid to do. They're not paid, if you like, to put together a document. They are paid to manage. They are paid to lead the business. So I think plan, do, check, and act, I would like it to see more applied at the strategic level, because even Deming, with his great wisdom, probably didn't emphasize this very clearly, that if you like, the performance and enhancing productivity and those kind of things can apply at the strategic level. Once you've got synchronization between the two, a two-way process, top-down goal deployment, bottom-up performance, measurement, review, action, and so on, you have created that chain, okay? Once you've got that, what have you created, really? You have created goal alignment, congruence. Everybody is focusing in the right direction. Everybody knows what the target is. Everybody have agreed their own individual objectives with their superiors. Everybody set out to deliver what they must deliver. And everybody meet with their superiors or at the higher level to review what they have done. Easy, easy language. Apply it and you'll see how hard it is. Once you've done all of that, you can start to see that the outcomes, or as John calls them, the lagging measures, there will be many of them. Yes, I can measure customer satisfaction and I can achieve it. Yes, I can measure returns to my shareholders. I can measure employee satisfaction, market share, and so on. So you cannot rush to measure these if you haven't put in place a lot of leading measures, a lot of in-process measures, which are going to enable you to predict that your results are going to be au fait, and you're going to be happy with them. So that's a slide, if you like, which is describing the business and what the business ought to do. It's abstract, but as we will see a little bit later on, I will show you one or two examples to see how this works in practice. But out of this slide, there are a lot of soft issues which we don't understand. a lot of people say to me, well, we've got measures, you know, we've been very clever at designing measures. We have matrices. Come and sit here, here's a computer, look at these matrices. And they haven't understood that measurement is real. Measurement is about people. Most measurement gets misused and abused, okay? Particularly if you link it to pay, that's really the worst part of it. Measurement has got to fit the culture. You cannot change, you cannot do it the other way around. You have to start with the culture and say, well, you know, if I show this chart to an employee, would they understand what it means? If I ask them to collect data here, you know, would they know what to do? If I show them this, would they know the interpretation of it? And so on and so forth. Is there trust, for example? Would senior managers commit to sharing the strategy? Would they commit to having a bottom-up, top-down appraisal, performance management system, which is based on that? Many, many soft issues. And time again, through our research, we have come to the conclusion that measurement fails because of the soft issues, not because there's anything wrong with the blueprinting of systems or the design of the measures themselves. Those of you in this room today, you might say, this is a waste of time, we've done it, we've got good measures here. Please think about what I said. Think about the soft issues. Are they really working for you? John and I have thrown a challenge at you. We're asking you to be candid and put a ranking, if you like, or a score to say whether those measures work for you, or whether you do a little bit of fiddling. We'll forgive you about it. Okay, I was going to give you some definitions, but I may skip some slides, and forgive me, because you can read those in the back. They don't need explaining, but I mean, I'll put one or two, just to keep reminding ourselves. The first one, I think when we talk about TQ-based performance measurement, we're only talking about specific measures. There's lots of measures that you can apply. But the TQ-based performance measures are about value-adding work, which is customer-driven. We're not talking about activities, number of this and number of that, and percentage of this and percentage of that. We're only measuring what is valuable to the customer, small or large, it doesn't matter. And we have a catalog of measures, and we'll share with you one or two, but most measures are time-related, cost-related, or quality-related, you know, and you can't stress them beyond that, really. Measures are a demonstration that you are committed to continuous improvement. You actually take actions, and you like to control your work environment. One key thing to remind senior managers of is that TQ-based performance measures, by the way, are what I call relative. They're not absolute. In other words, if the performance this week was lousy, that doesn't mean it's a disaster, does it? It's this week. This week the performance was lousy. So when a decision is to be made, it has to be based on the trends, on, if you like, how regularly are you lousy, so to speak. So when we make decisions, it's at the particular time and point in time. But in reality, I think you will see that managers take action as if the measures are absolute. That's it. They describe the environment. They describe how ugly the process is. They describe how bad the people are, which is wrong. You know, nobody should make a decision on one set of measures. You need to look at trends, history. If I come to your company and you show me 1995 or 96, I'll be very impressed, but I would say, please show me a little bit more so I can make a judgment. Because if you show me 4 years, then I can be in a position to say, you're ugly, or you're doing fine, or you have blips from time to time. Tighten those, you know? The doctor looks at your history. Before you come for a diagnosis, they have taken your file out, and they reminded themselves very quickly about your health status. And I think, please remember that if in your filing cabinets you have got measures which are 95, and then 94, 93, and I know you're busy people, and you haven't had time to aggregate and plot trends, please take time to do it. It's a revelation. It's really interesting. Okay? It's very important. Because sometimes you think you look bad, but when you actually look back and you look how the effort you have made, you realize, you know, it's not bad. And that's the message people want to hear. Don't show them 1 year. Show them 1 year in the context of the history of measurement. Two aspects to measurement, and I'll give you an anecdote, on this, which is an ICL one actually. 2 words, very simple. When I measure, I want to establish 2 things. I want to establish what I call process visibility. In other words, I want to get rid of the bad things, and I want to streamline, I want to optimize, I want to be efficient, I want to be effective, I want to be competitive. As simple as that. This is business. So if I plot my measures, if it is something positive like value adding, I would like to see a positive curve, yeah? Positive trend. If it is negative like waste, you'd like to see it going down. Let's look at it here. Right, so you have got two scenarios, okay? This is waste of any kind, and this is value. This is process visibility. And as far as the customer is concerned, you could have consistency, so you don't have the noises and the trust factor again. You see, if you don't manage your consistency, and if you are a little bit like this, the customer will not trust you. If you are consistent, or you're doing better, then they trust you. So that's one element. The other element is progress visibility, which concerns itself with the customer, that you are indeed becoming competitive. How do you do it? You do it through benchmarking. This is where we are, right? This is where the competition is, perhaps. And, this is our response after 2 years, whatever. So we demonstrate to the customer that we have closed what I call a negative gap in performance, but we have opened a positive gap in performance. We have created a competitive advantage. So all of this data, all of these measures say a lot about you. That is the customer language. The customer is not interested in internally what you do. This is the language of business. It's also the business, by the way, of motivating people, or getting people on board, getting them committed. Forgive me to bring this example of ICL. D2D, a few years ago, I think it happened in the 80s, when they used to measure extensively the PONC, the price of non-conformance. They had everybody measuring PONC, and and everybody displaying PONC. Initially, I think it worked very well for them, and PONC was going down. But I think after a while, PONC started to go up, and everybody was embarrassed. We're working hard and harder and in more innovative ways, and PONC is going up. What's going on here? And I think this is because when they were working here, they were scratching at the surface. They were not really tackling the real problems, But when they got here, they started to hit at the real problems, and then they realized how bad certain things are. So this is what measurement can do to you. A lot of people start to be demotivated by this, And what you need to do is be clever, because it conveys messages. It has to be reassuring. And now I think you do it as a proportion of turnover or something, the PONC. So it's what you do, the improvement against what remains to be done, if you like. So what you need to do is plot against this. You need to plot the improvement measures. To say to employees, look, we've done a great deal, thank you very much, and we have really improved dramatically. However, as you can see, there's still a lot of things to be done. We still have a lot to do. That is a message that employees will buy into, they will accept. But if you don't have these measures here, and you just show them this, how ugly the organization is, it's cracking the whip, but cracking it for no reason at all. It's sounding alarms, and perhaps sounding alarms for no reason at all. So please remember, measurement is dangerous. Convey the right message with measurement. Ensure that the right measure is conveying the right message, and it's doing the right thing for you. And and part of today is really to check that. I think there's a lot of terminology about measurement, what they're called, and I'm going to skip that because you can read it in the charts. You can call TQ-based performance measures improvement measures or physical measures or whatever, but I think all of us here understand what that means. You know the difference between efficiency and effectiveness measures. You know the difference between a measure and an indicator. The indicator is the absolute part of the measure. It could be a percentage, it could be a pound note, it could be anything. There is control measures, which are about the SPC, for example. This is about the consistency. So in other words, you measure the input side, you measure the consistency of the process, and you measure the effectiveness of the output side. Okay, so measurement has to cover the process. Measurement hasn't got to be in one way only. So if you've got a lot of lagging measures in the ICL terminology, you should perhaps ask yourself the questions. You know, how can we make decisions just by having lagging measures? What is the context? The context is really the leading measures. And if you don't have that balance, you know, you cannot really make good decisions. So part of today as well is to look at that in the context. As I said earlier on, the problem is not really measures per se. The problem is designing the culture for measurement. The problem is performance measurement systems. And let's just remind ourselves through this simple definition. What is a TQ-based performance measurement? It's a methodology, isn't it? A framework by which measures are cascaded down throughout the organization. It represents the methodology used to manage activities in line with set targets and to continuously take action so that the output is in line with what customer requirements are and to reflect the corporate targets. It's, you know, if you don't have a deployment framework, then forget it, don't measure. You know, you remember the analogy of hitting ducks at midnight. You know, you hear a lot of squawking and a lot of noise, but you don't know whether you're doing any harm or good. You see? So measurement on its own, for the sake of measurement, could be doing more harm than good. How can we create corporate alignment if we don't have a methodology that everybody understands and everybody applies? How can we get everybody to deliver corporate goals if we don't have a methodology, a framework? So you need to have that. The methodology determines what measures you should use, and not the other way around. Okay? And let's put this in question today. Have we got the right methodology in ICL? In your syndicate groups, you know, challenge it. Goal deployment. Are you clear about what the corporate targets are? Are you clear about how they are deployed within your business units internationally? Are you clear about your own subunits? Are you clear about yourselves as individuals? And how is it reviewed on a regular basis? And so on and so forth. It's a debate for you to have, but you will not have enough time, unfortunately. There's a catalogue of measures as well in your pack. Is some measures from Deming Prize winners. I've lost that slide, unfortunately, but I know what's in it. Just to show you that measures, you don't have to be clever at them. I mean, the Japanese, for example, measure everything that you measure in ICL. Everything, more or less. I mean, this is part of the measurement. Manufacturing failure, you know, negative quality. There you are. Deming Prize winners measure negative quality. They have deficiencies. Finished good inspection, quality assurance measures. User disadvantages, that's complaints and deficiencies, again, through the transaction part. But the one or two I like is this user advantages. You see, innovation, the third dimension of quality, strategic quality, user advantages. And this has been translated from Japanese, so the language is not refined. Market quality evaluation data, what does that mean? That means customer satisfaction, doesn't it? Comparison with international standards, that's benchmarking, isn't it? Changes in quality problems, that's innovation, isn't it? Extension of warranty period, that's branding. Sony is Sony. But, you know, That's really what attracted me by these set of measures. So you can see, this is just from one example, that there is a proportion. And my friend here earlier on was absolutely spot on about compromising, the happy compromise of not trying to optimize one dimension before you think about another dimension. It is the happy compromise of dealing with deficiencies, optimizing with learning about quality, developing skills, knowledge and know-how, but also working here. And that's absolutely spot on. I've also picked some examples for you from the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award winners. And again, you can see that what they measure is common sense. They're not clever at measurement more than you. But please notice, particularly in the Western ones, because the language is one that you understand, that the measures are very akin to the cultures themselves. If you take Federal Express, because of the business they have something like 15 indicators, okay? And they're all about their business, when you think about Federal Express, you say speed. I want to be reassured that my parcel is going to get there. I want it on time, I want it intact, I want it, and those are the measures, it's the business. You take IBM, and that would be an interesting one for you to look at. It's exactly what they do. It's the business they're doing. So measurement is your business. The third one, of course, is the European Quality Award model winners, and I've picked 1992 winner, Rank Xerox. And again, out of 24,000 people in Europe, in Rank Xerox, 16,000 actually are service engineers. They spend their time in something like 24 or 26 countries supporting customers, responding to their queries, and so on and so forth. So you will find that the measures in that chart are actually describing the business. They are giving the customer perspective. They are saying a lot about quality and how they're committed to it. So again, one of the challenges for you in your syndicate is to say, okay, those are the measures overall in an aggregated fashion in our team that we measure. Are they reflecting our business? When we cite those measures, does it ring ICL, computers, follow-up, service, support, those kind of things? Please give this a consideration too. Just to re-emphasize what we said earlier on, why measurement is your business and is everyone's business, because they are the yardstick that tell us what we've done. We get rid of supposition, we get rid of bias, we get rid of vindictiveness, we get rid of the them and us, which is hurting a lot of businesses. If we have hard data, hard facts, management by facts. People have been preaching this since the late 40s and 50s, and some of us still don't take notice. Quality improvement without measurement, and I mentioned that quote, is like hitting ducks at midnight. Things for which we can devise indicators can be managed. There's a lot of typos in this slide. Things for which we have no indicators can be out of control before we realize it. So control and management, remember the 5 fingers, I've already talked about that. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. You don't agree? Somebody doesn't agree? I think it is true. Complacency can be, we can get rid of complacency with measurement, because measurement is the little kick, the little nudge, the little shove, the little push that gets you to do something about your environment, your work, your process, whatever. But it's measurement from a complete perspective, which I've got in mind. It's measure internally, first of all. Be inspired through benchmarking about who is the best, who is doing something different. Because once you know, you will hate yourself to death. You say, for so many years, we've had this problem, and all what we could have done is go out and speak to some people or visit a couple of companies, and we could have done something about it. So measurement gets rid of complacency. It prevents complacency. You talk to all the companies that have measured for many years, and they will tell you how they have eradicated problems, how they have moved from one orbit to another, through measurement, and how they have transformed their culture and their organization from one era to another. So it is absolutely true, it is verified, and I can show you and share with you a lot of evidence to justify that statement down there. Have you got any accountants, management accountants in this room? No? Nobody works in finance? Oh, John, you've had it. I'm going to really attack you now. History. Thank you. No, I'm joking, John. I think what I want to do now is really make sure that all of us are very clear about what we're talking about when we mention total quality management in the context of traditional performance measurement. By taking you back a little bit to the history. If you look at management accounting and traditional measures, most of them, you would agree with me, are old-fashioned, aren't they? They have been derived from old concepts going back to the 50s. Return on investment, for example, ROI, is very old, isn't it? Does anybody know how old ROI is? It was invented by DuPont in 1919, okay? It's over 50 years old. And it was invented in an era of, if you like, mass production, high labor content, low technology, and those kind of environment. And it was also invented as a long-term measure, not a short-term measure. Cost accounting data is based on outdated and irrelevant principles. We still use them. We still teach them at my university, and I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed, because I see a lot of textbooks that our students read, and they haven't really changed the perspective slightly to justify today's working environment. We have trained our managers, unfortunately, to make decisions on management accounting information. I wish Keith was here. Cost accounting information is enabled to map the process. You would agree with me. Finance is here. Core processes are down here, okay? The mindset is not there to make decisions on the process, its effectiveness, its problems, its potential, the scope and those kind of things. There is a big gap between what is made as a decision and what actually happens. And as I said, cost accounting data is relevant to low technology and so on. So what we're saying is, and I will show you one or two examples of cost accounting information, management information. That is not a statement I have made. That is sheer reality. And I have lifted a quote from the most respected guru in management accounting, Professor Kaplan, if you're American. Have you heard of Kaplan? Harvard Business School? This is what he says. Existing systems for cost and performance measurement have provided little motivation to support companies' attempts to incorporate total quality management, just-in-time, design for manufacturability, flexible manufacturing systems concepts into ongoing, continuous improvement activities. In some instances, the traditional financial performance measures actually inhibited improvement activities. There is a man who has been enlightened by the fact that the old measures haven't moved alongside the changes in business dynamics. And there was an urgent need to actually do something about it. And by the way, he's the man behind the balanced scorecard, which is in your pack. I'm not going to say a word about it, because it's outside the scope of today. But he is actually went on pioneering and changing the culture of measurement to make it compatible with modern business ethos. So let's take what Kaplan is telling us in the right context. He's saying that things like these, you see, which some companies still use. How many of you, by the way, use purchase price and measures like these? How many of you? Let's be honest. How many of you? Lift hands up. 1, 2, 3, yeah, few, yeah. Hands will come up. Purchase price, direct labor, and machine efficiencies, and ratios of direct to indirect. Those are traditional performance measures. And Kaplan is saying they're inhibiting, they're actually harming the effort of continuous improvement because they are not in compatibility with what the customer wants, what the customer needs. Because in modern days, these are the challenges. Process times. Time is money. Peter says, pay people for time, for innovation. Unilever, for example, use the motto, it's better to be good and first rather than being best and last, because they are in branding. If they hit the market first, the consumer will rush to the shelves and buy their products and not somebody else's. So by managing process times, you've actually won the race, and you're actually going to collect the medal. Delivery performance, that's a customer measure. Throughput times, inventory reductions. Inventory is like a cancer, isn't it? If you get rid of cancer, you're a healthy business. And increasing flexibility. Dealing with sporadic demand, dealing with changes in customer, if you like, conditions, dealing with complexity, those kind of things are important to the customer. And that's really what we're talking about today. Quality improvement measures. So if you compare the two, you'll find that they are incompatible. And the top ones are more harmful for our effort of continuous improvement. And in fact, if you look at the ratio of direct to indirect, you won't be able to use it nowadays because hardly anybody is left in employment. So, what we are saying is, by the way, I am not saying that discard altogether financial performance measures. I'm saying please put them in the right context. We need information. Information is the lifeblood of business. And information has got to be managed in the right way, in the right format, at the right time, and has got to be delivered to the right people. And I'm saying that hand in hand, financial summaries are absolutely critical because they give us facts about the health of the business financially over a period of time against our wishes, against our aspirations. But in addition to that, we're saying let's have some non-financial performance measures or direct performance measures which give us the robustness, which help us deliver the top ones. The top ones depend on the bottom ones, leading and lagging. If you build robustness, you deliver the financials. If you want to destroy your business, you can deliver the financials, but you destroy the business. Okay? And we know that in a lot of businesses, there's a lot of shortcutting, there's a lot of snapping with scissors here and there, there's a lot of across the board, which you all hate, I know, 10% across the board, without understanding the ramification of that for some entities which have optimized down here. So you can imagine, if you have the two together, and you start to see the potential, you start to actually say, we're only operating here at 30% of our potential, and our target is to deliver so much growth, so much profit, whatever. You know exactly what to do, and that's powerful. That's the voice of the process. That's the ingredient which so far has been missing from businesses. And that's the one we need to really bring back. And I'm pleased that ICL, for instance, is a company which relies in its decisions on both financial and non-financial. Does it? Let's check it out. Forgive the arrows. I think John picked that out. It's one of our technicians when they produce the charts. But I think plan, act, check, and do is not confusing, is it? Work is a process. Measurement is linked to this word process, and please translate it in your own terminology, I don't mind. But we've been talking so far about surrounding the work environment with measures. And we're saying measure the input side, measure the supplier side, if you like, and measure the output side, which is the customer side. Measure within the consistency, minimize the variability. That's where things like SPC become useful. But measure the right things. Don't measure quantities. Don't measure efficiencies of machines and things like that. Measure time. measure quality, measure cost. Okay, because that's quality measures. Okay, we talked about measurement and the corporate journey of measurement and how it affects various parts of the business. What I would like to do through this chart is actually demonstrate to you how you could build the fabric of the organization with measurement, how you could make it applicable to all areas of the business, and how you could extend measurement from being an internal activity, optimizing effectiveness, to an external activity which will give you positive competitiveness and which will make you the benchmark, if you like. I think from this chart, obviously, you start from the top here, and we did say this morning that the understanding of strategy, the understanding of corporate measurement is starting with the voice of the customer, market analysis, competitor intelligence analysis, benchmarking areas of weakness, if you like, to the business, and that will become an input. The other input, which is coming from within, is your own understanding of your strengths and the weaknesses as a business, your capability, your competence, your readiness and willingness and to be stretched for corporate targets. All those ingredients are put together or help put together the strategy, which is then deployed at the various areas of the business. And quality is very powerful in the sense that it breaks down the business, doesn't it? I mean, it starts with an abstract kind of perspective, which is the corporate perspective, and then you translate it at a level which is, down here, macro processes. So ICL within it are some bigger businesses or bigger entities. Within those entities, there is smaller entities, sub-processes, which could be divisions, departments, whatever you call them. Within the divisions or departments, you have got activities which bring people together. And then within the activities, you have got individuals performing. So in other words, I've started from the very top, from Keith Todd, and I've driven and I've translated the strategy all the way down to the individual. And you can do it with quality, through flow charting, through process mapping, through, if you like, creating the link between critical success factors of the business and the processes, the relevant processes for the business. So you have a link, which is the top-down link, which is goal communication, goal deployment. But what goes down must come up. And this is really what we've been talking about this morning. That's performance measurement. Against the targets, the corporate targets, where do you fare? Okay? Depending on where you are, the reaction of your feedback and the speed of which is determined by the process. So if you are here, for example, your measurement might be daily, might it, maybe weekly. If you are in a section or a subgroup activity, maybe you measure weekly and monthly, and you feed it back to your head of department. If you're a head of department, maybe you feed back your measures monthly. If you are here, maybe you review every 6 months. So you aggregate measurements, and then you push it upwards, and then it becomes one, if you like, set of standards against the objectives of the business. So what I'm trying to say by this bottom-up, top-down is the degree of synchronization, okay? I send you a signal, and you say to me, received loud and clear, and here's my answer to you, okay? So synchronization is the harmony that every business so wants to desire. And it's tough, because that drilling, if you like, is drilling the mindsets, the behavior. And it's not really the books of measurement or the matrices or these methodologies. It's actually whether people buy into those measures and they deliver the results that the business wants. So that's one aspect to bear in mind. I think the other aspect, please do not forget that good may not be good enough sometimes, okay? So sometimes you measure and you say, wow, we're not doing badly. Customer satisfaction is 92%, right? 92% is very high, I agree. People sweat and work very hard to reach that standard. But if you go out and benchmark and you find that the industry average is 95%, you will realize very quickly that good is not good enough. That is reality, that is a fact. So you have got a process here called benchmarking, which is so fundamental because it drives measurement, it drives the wheel of improvement. If my wheel of improvement is turning at 10 miles an hour, and everybody else's wheel of improvement is doing 50, 60 miles an hour, I have got a problem. If I want to run a marathon, and I think it's not bad doing it in 2 weeks, and I find out afterwards that, world class, does it under 3 hours or whatever, I've got a problem, haven't I? So you need to put measurement in perspective. And I think one of the weaknesses, and I can tell you, ICL is inclusive in this, of organizations, is not trying to put measurement in the context of industry leaders, world-class standards. So benchmarking is critical in measurement. More importantly, from this chart, the point I wanted to convey is that benchmarking is corporate. Benchmarking is not an activity for senior managers only. This person here, doing a task, a receptionist or a security person or whatever, they have to benchmark what they do, their standards, their practices, the knowledge they have against best in class. And everybody does the same thing. So the robustness of measurement has got to be put in that context. When you plot measures, and we said this morning, didn't we? If you demonstrate to the customer that you have a good standard, that it is one which is best in class, or which is acceptable in relation to your competitors, the customer will be happy with you. But if you have a standard which is internally driven and hasn't been compared externally, then you have a problem. So let's not forget the importance of this. What about this box here? Nice, soft, if you like, put aside. I call it the watering can. You know what you do with watering cans? You look after what? Flowers and beautiful things, yeah? I think in organizations, we build fabric, don't we? We through this chart, I wanted to say to you that if you want to build an organization, you build it in this way. There isn't another way. This is the business. Everybody adds value. And you check it by traveling from here to here. There's strong focus here because we are focusing long term, not short term. We have a good basis because our basis, the foundation of the business, is based on what is best, what is pioneering. And we have synchronization, right? We talk, we work, we manage dynamically. You know what's missing? Is this reward recognition bit, okay? So it's the watering can. Plants give you beauty and color and everything else, but you need to, from time to time, drop a little bit of water, okay? And I think that reward recognition is soft, but I think it's so important, if you like, for making the business blossom. I'm not a gardener, by the way. So that is the context. So when somebody talks about goal deployment, it is not just a case of saying, what is the blueprint? Let's get inspiration from Xerox or Hewlett Packard. I put so many examples in your pack. You will see Komatsu, and you have got General Motors, and I've got quite a few there. But it's culture. You need to go back to the culture of ICL and say, what is our fabric? What is it made of? Where are the holes? Where can we patch up things? Okay? Where can we look after our competence and things like that? And this is the context of goal deployment. And within that, there is an element which is called measurement. You have different levels of measurement and different level of goal deployment. The first one, which is top management responsibility, which is the plan, do, check, and act of the top management, is this one, isn't it? Formulation stage, preconception, building the vision, arguing the various scenarios, looking at constraints on you, looking at how hurt you are and what your competitors are doing, and how far your customers expect you to stretch, if you like, and deliver to them. Those ingredients will help you, translate the vision into some goals and targets, and then you start the deployment. The deployment is at all levels here. Core process, which is still a little bit high, departmental, which comes down, and all the way to the individual task. This is deployment stage. The deployment is based on a cascade of measures. You can call them primary measures, big measures, aggregate measures. You can call them secondary measures, smaller, still semi-aggregate, or you could call them tertiary measures, which are individual process measures, right? Those of you, particularly the ladies, there is an analogy, measures and mothers. So there is a mother measure, a daughter measure, and a granddaughter measure. So, and there is a link between the granddaughter and the mother, isn't there? So there has to be a link between the tertiary measure and the primary measure. So that is fundamental. What comes up from me as an individual to my head of section is a language that both of us understand. What my head of section gathers from me and my two colleagues is a language that the head of department understands. What the head of department conveys to the bigger boss is a language which is more corporate, which becomes more strategic, if you like. That is fundamental. It has to reflect the culture. It has got to be the ICL language. There is no other way of doing it. That's the way to do it. And as I said here, the review depends on where you are. You know, because processes, as they become more and more operational, they become faster in terms of turnarounds and in terms of what they add value. If you go up, you know, it's a bigger, complex picture. So you need 2 monthly, 3 monthly, whatever, kind of cycle. And out of all the examples which are there, I just picked one because time is not on our side. And I picked the one that I think you based your deployment process on, which is Rank Xerox. And you will see from theory to practice, you know, I hope that it's the same thing. What I was saying to you in abstract fashion is what Xerox does. The vision starts from the States, corporate, you know, it's very big, it's worldwide, just like ICL, setting the business direction, vision, and priorities. Out of that formulation stage comes a 3 to 5 year strategy. You cannot deploy strategy, 3 to 5 year strategy in one go, so you have to deploy it incrementally in annual targets. Business plan. The business plan becomes more specific to the countries and to the specific organizations. Then the deployment is an interesting one. Because Xerox value the human input, they use a principle called catchball. And some of you, how many of you have heard of catchball, the catchball principle? Right. As long as you haven't got Velcro, you're all right. The catchball principle is a Japanese concept, and basically it's bartering, it's arguing. I want you to improve 30%, you say to me, come off it, you know, I'm already running up to here, I can only commit to 20%. And I say to you, well, 20% is not enough, the business really needs to move faster. And then you present your data, your facts, and we lock in and we go, okay? At all levels. So it's communication, it's about people. And they have a period of doing the cascade down. They have, I think, 2 months or whatever for everybody to commit. And then they print the outcomes, the commitment, in something called the Blue Book. So everybody has got a copy of the Blue Book. They know what's happening at the top. They know what's happening at their level. And their appraisal is based on what they have committed to. So they agree, and then they go away and they start to work, plan, do, check, and act, and they produce the targets. On a regular basis, they review and they take appropriate action, and then annually they look at what they have achieved against the vision, and then they put the business plan for the year to come. What is quality doing in all of this? Quality is just the membrane. It's just supporting that culture of performance and measurement. So using plan, do, check, and act, and taking appropriate action, they try. Doesn't mean they deliver their results all the time. They have their own problems like you have yours, but they try very hard to deliver the corporate goals. Okay? The appraisal system, by the way, is not used just for reward. It is also used for employee development, for your skill needs, and for the competences that the organization needs to develop. Right? And all the targets are reviewed against benchmarks and benchmarking outside. For example, one of their plants in Worcester, the Michelin plant, mid-volume copiers, I think it was last year or the year before, they generated the best profit in 8 years. okay, the best profit in 8 years, but nobody got a bonus. Why? Because Canon did better than them. And that's harsh and horrible, but that's business reality. Nobody got a bonus, even though they produced the best profit in 8 years, because our competitor is moving faster than us. So once again, you see, it's the context. And people feel hurt, but they accept that, you know, tough. Business is tough, and that's reality. If they didn't have this synchronization, this language, this communication, they would have had a problem. Okay, everybody would have said, let's go on a strike, you know, we're not part of it, them and us, and that kind of culture. But because they have worked so hard on that, it has helped them, you know, get people to focus even on more improvement. So you have got other examples in your packs, and they're all the same. This two-way principle is this cascading down, and is this ethos of, if you like, plan, do, check, and act, which supports it. But it's also based on where you are, where you want to be in relation to best in class, not just in relation to yourselves. What I want to do now is just share with you 13 points, and there could be more than 13, for implementing measurement, for ensuring that you are doing the right things, and the measurement culture is going to develop. I think we have to start with a basic question, which is, what is the purpose of measurement? What am I measuring, first of all? You know, don't embark on measurement until you understand what it means. Am I measuring something for the shareholder? In which case, I know, well, you know, this is business results. It's the lagging measures. Am I measuring for variability and consistency? So I'll have measures for the process to create consistency. Or am I measuring for continuous improvement? In which case, I develop new measures, improvement measures. Understand the purpose of measurement. The second rule is choose a balance between individual and group measures. The reasons are so obvious, aren't they? You know, we say one hand cannot clap on its own, right? So if you're beating the drum with one hand, you're not going to make a lot of excitement. It's nice to have two hands. It's nice to have four hands. Measurement for the individual has got to be referenced by measurement within the group, has got to be referenced by the culture. You're building a culture with measurement, you see. So that's why you need to cascade it all the way and not just have it allocated in one specific area of the business. You're compelled to measure all key areas of performance of your business. We gave you this morning for the exercise about 7 broad categories. You know, normally those are areas which are core to any business. So if you didn't measure innovation, for example, I mean, I think that we had a conversation with one of the groups, and they don't have measures on innovation. That's worrying, isn't it? Because what is innovation? Innovation is your future. Is how much you want to invest in your future, how much you want to sustain your performance. It's going to explode on me. We're nearly there. Ensure that measures reflect customer point of view, internally and externally. We did through the exercise want you to verify that what you measure is not wasteful, is not, if you like, with low impact, but something that has value to it. Select measures carefully for establishing standards. When I say be simple, there is a point there. If you try to be too clever and ICLers, you say, well, this is our language, these are our measures. You know what the problem is going to be? When you go outside to benchmark, nobody speaks your language. You know, you're speaking Chinese and everybody else speaks another language. So when you develop standards, ensure that they are generic as far as practically possible. Because when you benchmark, it's going to be apples with apples. If you say, what are you doing on innovation? Right? So how do you measure innovation? You might say, we measure it by the number of product launches per year. You go out to another company and they might say, well, we don't do it that way at all. We measure it in terms of revenue. So how can you compare, if you like, number of launches per period of time with revenue from new products? You see? So compatibility and genericis of the measures is absolutely critical. Allow for the learning curve. This is another mistake that businesses make. It's designed here, tomorrow, implemented. There's a memorandum coming from the director, and he says, by next month, I want A printout, thank you very much. This will never work. People will misuse and abuse measurement. They will read the mind of the top guy. What does he want out of this? Oh, he wants us to look good. Let's look good, right? They do it. But what you want to do through measurement is educate people. Is say to them, look, don't worry about anything, right? This is the process. I will point the finger at the process. And Deming says it, doesn't he? 85% in Duran and all the gurus, that most of the problems are process related and not people related. So you need to give people the learning curve, the time to understand that measurement is non-threatening. Okay? Is revealing, yes, revealing, but it's non-threatening to them as individuals. 1 to 6, planning. Japanese succeed because they spend 80% of their time planning before they execute, before they do. So it could take you a long time just to go through this process. But the next stage is actually implementation. And I've got 7 steps here. I think we were asked this morning, and I answered briefly, and I said, one of the points I have is about who gets involved in measurement. And mold the measurement in a participatory kind of way. Get people involved, you know, get their viewpoints, try to capture their fears, their suspicion, and because they're going to own the measurement. If you don't involve them at the beginning, there's no way they're going to own the measurement. Apply cost-benefit analysis. Some measures are too small, and you might be too obsessed chasing them, you know. I want to measure this, it's so important. If you don't do a cost-benefit analysis, you will not realize that you know, your resources are limited. So why devote so much resources on a measure which only gives you 0.5% of the total picture? I can wait until, you know, I find a clever way of measuring a specific area, but I'm not going to be obsessed, if you like, with measuring everything. I measure the things which have high leverage points from the customer point of view, from the business point of view, because those I cannot afford to neglect. And I think measurement is evolutionary. Please remember that. It's not revolutionary. In other words, evolve the culture, develop the culture with time, with measures. I gave you the example of Elida Fabergé, and I said, for many years they had supply chain matrix and no problems with that. It took us 18 months to prepare a similar matrix for brand development. And we're going to pilot now, and it might take a year to pilot it. So give it time. Use surrogate measures for things which are difficult to measure. There's some soft things, aren't there? Like morale. How do you measure morale? How do you measure morale? It's very difficult to do that. So you use something which is approximate. Maybe absenteeism is a good measure. Maybe you know, people contributions, creativity, suggestion schemes, and so on. And decide them to be flexible, because if the strategy moves that way, the measurement may have to move 90 degrees as well. And lastly, make sure that you understand that measurement is long term. And if you miss the boat once, it doesn't mean you're going to sink. You know, you're waiting on the platform for the next one to arrive. And with this, I have to stop because you know, time has run out. I hope you have found the session very useful, and I wish you the best of luck. And thank you for listening. Thank you.